Most men think that confidence is something that you're born with, but that's a lie. Confidence is built, and I'm going to show you how. This month, we're talking about midlife crises, and in some frame, you could see it as a crisis of confidence. What worked in the past no longer works moving forward. Because of that, we start to shake, we start to shatter, and eventually we start to give up. Because what a midlife crisis demands isn't going back to the past. It's building stronger in the future. It's evolving, it's changing, it's about pivoting to your new life situation. Now, if you're listening to this episode, you've been following us for a while, we're gonna look at the personal midlife crisis. But I want to speak a little bit about masculinity as a whole, because I think that is also going through a crisis. A lot of us are doubling down on what worked in the past, and we're doubling down, and we're not evolving. My hope is that this show and the work that we do at Men's Therapy Online can be something that makes us evolve, that in many ways forces us to. Because what I've seen from a lot of the clients I work with is that it takes a crash to move forward. It takes something like a midlife crisis, a divorce, an overdose, a really bad Christmas, something like that, to make you want to change. But once you do, we have all the resources that you need at your disposal. This podcast is one of them, but we also have individual counseling, couples, group. We have tons of blogs and a million podcast episodes. So we're here for you. And what I'm going to teach you today is how to build confidence, because when most guys come through our door, they're at an all-time low. They don't have confidence. They don't know who they are. They've lost their identity. People in their lives usually pissed at them, often their wives. And you can't just get it back, because as men, we're not dumb, right? So many therapists are going to say, hey, just look yourself in the mirror, say, I am lovable, I am confident, I can make it happen. But as men, we know that we're lying to ourselves. We have to evolve and change. We have to become the man that we respect so that we can look ourselves in the mirror and move forward with strength and confidence. So I've worked with CEOs, I've worked with athletes, even special ops soldiers, first responders, worked with a ton of people. I've been doing this job for over 15 years. And guess what? They all struggle with confidence at some point. But what separates confident men from the rest, it's not genetics, it's not luck, it's not money, it's mindset, it's habits, and healing old wounds. As therapists, we're going to go deeper. There's tons of coaches out there that will help you build habits, and that's useful. Look, I've benefited from that a ton. But without the healing of the deep wounds, without really understanding how you got into this mess, those habits are not going to stick. In my own life, I had to do therapy for 4 years before I was ready to start coaching, before I was ready to take advice from anybody. Because of my own wounds, my own self-sabotage, my own shitty behaviors, I was not able to move forward. I needed to go back and heal so I could move forward stronger. So today I'm going to give you 7 practical psychology-backed steps that you can start using today, right now, right after you listen to this episode. We're going to rewire your brain for more self-confidence. Like I said, these aren't just motivational quotes. They're not affirmations. They're tools that I use personally and teach my clients every single week when I'm doing therapy. So let's get into it. Number 1, building evidence. Confidence is not earned. If your brain doesn't have evidence to support it, it won't believe it. You can't just generate confidence out of nowhere. Again, I think that's where a lot of therapists and coaches mess up. You have to earn it. So every day you have to do a hard thing. Make one small win. It could be something fairly irrelevant, like taking a cold shower, waking up 10 minutes earlier, or doing 5 push-ups. The brain is simple in many ways. It is more about making a promise and keeping that promise to yourself rather than making major changes. The idea here is you need to get used to winning. You need to start the ball rolling and keep it rolling, because your brain isn't really tracking the outcome. It's tracking the momentum and the progress. So by starting to train yourself to doing something that you don't want to do, by starting to disrupt your habit system, you can start to build up to finishing the things you've been avoiding, to beating down procrastination, and finally living the life and having the productivity that you deserve. And once you start to do these things, your brain will start to say, hey, maybe I can do hard things, right? Maybe I can start these new habits. Maybe I can overcome some of these changes, some of these difficulties. That's confidence. So basically, just do stuff, right? Kind of simple, but oftentimes you'll see barriers in the way. you'll see things like your inner critic. And that's why we get to number 2, which is starting to destroy that inner critic. Because most men walk around with an inner voice that sounds like a bully. It's someone that's saying, you're not enough, you're going to screw this up. Someone that says, hey, remember last time you promised you weren't going to drink over the weekend and you did? You're such a piece of shit for doing that. We have that shame voice that is constantly going. And where'd it come from? Usually from a parent, maybe from a coach or a teacher, maybe from an older sibling, maybe from media, right? An ex-girlfriend. It doesn't really matter. That voice is toxic and is currently destroying you. So in therapy, we name it. We understand it. We give it a name. We give it a metaphor, right? We find a way that you can really externalize it and now start to take its power away, because in that moment, you realize that voice is not you. In fact, that voice hates you. I make that really clear. That voice hates you. And you should hate it back. By doing things from CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, the idea is you need to start to counteract that voice. When you have a voice that says, hey, you suck, you're never going to do this, you're never going to amount to anything, you have to say, that's not me. That's old programming. That's my shitty dad. That's my abusive sibling. That's that teacher that never really believed in me. That's not me. And if you can start to counteract that voice and build a more positive self-talk, a more positive ecosystem for your mind and your habits and your actions, then they're going to actually stick. Because self-confidence is not about being loud. It's about being on your side, right? It's about really believing in yourself and knowing that you can make things happen. The next thing you need to do is stopping the comparison game, because comparison kills confidence, period. It just does. Once you start comparing yourself to other people, well, first off, you're only comparing yourself to what you see in other people, which is inherently wrong. You don't know people's inner worlds. You're not with them 24/7. You're seeing their best face. You're seeing the successes. You're seeing what they want to talk about. Most people are not going to show you what's really going on. They're not going to tell you what they struggle with, what they're insecure about. And that's why I'll make a quick plug here. That's why men's groups are incredibly powerful. Because as men, we need to be around people that are showing us a more complete picture. So many of us are isolated. So many of us are alone. So many of us are getting our comparison through things like social media, or worse, Marvel movies, right? We're comparing ourselves with these heroes, with these fantastical characters. And that's not what reality is. So by joining a men's group, or by deepening your relationship with your friends or with your family, if you can talk about what's really going on, what's really holding you back, what you're really afraid of in life, you realize, one, you're not alone, because a lot of guys feel exactly the same way, literally exactly the same way. And two, those things are not as scary anymore, because if you can name them, if you can start to work on them, manipulate them as objects, and they don't become you, you can start to really make changes. So things you can do right away, right? Unfollow social media accounts that make you feel small, right? Does it spark joy? You can really, if you're looking at something and you're feeling worse, delete it. You don't need that in your life. Get off the dating apps if you're dating. That's a real confidence destroyer. And start to get into your own lane. Start to understand who you are, what you want, and only compare yourself to who you were previously. That comparison is important, because the idea is you need to be progressing, moving forward, getting better, learning from mistakes. Of course, there's going to be ups and downs, but the metric that matters is your own. So confidence blooms when we start measuring progress against who you were yesterday, not some fantasy that you're watching or this ideal version of who you think you should be. You're always going to lose that game. The goalposts are going to keep moving. So compare yourself to yourself and become that man who you want to be. The next thing is about embodying confidence. Your nervous system, right? Your brain, your hormones, they need to feel what confidence is like. Now, this is a hack. This is a biohack, but it really does work. So as you're listening right now, take a moment, put your shoulders back and down. Take a deep breath. Make eye contact. That's it. That's it. By embodying confidence, by really being aware of how your body takes up space and how you're presenting to yourself, right? Not to other people, to yourself, you can start to build confidence. And try that, right? Before your next meeting or your next date, do a 2-minute power ritual, right? Stand tall, breathe deep, say something kind to yourself. and train your body to feel safe while it's being seen. Because so much of it is kind of the vibe you put out. Confidence is not something you can just get. It's something that you feel. It's something that will, translate to other people. It's something that ripples out from you. And you can tell, right? When a real confident man walks into the room, it doesn't matter what they look like. It doesn't matter how tall they are. It doesn't matter how much they weigh. It doesn't matter how old they are. You can feel that. You can feel the gravitas that they bring. So by starting to practice it, starting to really embody this, it's going to start to make a change. The next thing, and it's something that I work with a lot with my clients, is taking micro risks. Because real confidence doesn't come from certainty. It doesn't come from the comfort zone. It comes from surviving uncertainty. I want to make that really clear, right? It comes from surviving uncertainty. So by taking micro risks, by really pushing yourself out of your comfort zone and surviving, you're going to become more confident. Because the idea of confidence, it's not that, hey, I can do anything. That's insane, right? That's like Captain America or Superman. It's, I can survive anything, or I can try anything, or I'm willing to learn. I know that I can improve if I try and I apply myself. It's much more of a process-oriented thing than a destination-oriented thing. But the only way you can train yourself and prove to yourself, again, those affirmations don't do shit. You can actually prove to yourself beyond a shadow of a doubt is by making changes. So what's a micro risk? Asking for something, right? Maybe asking for help, asking to hang out with somebody, asking for something that you want in life, speaking up, right? Saying a truth that you may have been holding in for a long time, or becoming more active in a conversation if you're more passive, approaching somebody, starting a conversation. And not everything has to go perfectly. In fact, it's better if it doesn't. Because again, it's not about winning every time. That's arrogance, It's about surviving the rejection. That's when your confidence becomes real. When you know that you can fail, you can get rejected, but you're unshakable. You still love yourself, right? The inner critic is silenced. You know you're moving forward. You know you're living in line with your values. That's what confidence is about. Win or lose doesn't matter. It's about getting out there, trying, and breaking out of the comfort zone. So something that we do a lot at MTO is we do depth psychology. And the idea is you need to learn about your shadow. Carl Jung said, you don't become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. True confidence comes from knowing your flaws and not being ashamed of them. It doesn't mean you don't work on them. I think a lot of men really mess this up. We think that, and maybe we've had the experience that only shame or anxiety or fear or guilt or regret motivates change. That sucks. That sucks, right? I mean, that's a really, really toxic way to make change in your life. What really needs to motivate change is love. And we have a lot of fathers that listen to this show. For the fathers out there, what that looks like, a lot of them experience it. If you can have a kid and you love that kid to death, and that kid probably sucks at a lot of stuff. So you can both love the kid and want them to be better at life. The idea here is to do that for yourself, is love yourself and want the best for yourself. It's a little bit of a higher EQ lift, but it can be really, really powerful when applied right. So the idea here is if you can face that shadow, if you can name your rage, your shame, your fear, you can then integrate it. You can use that. You can understand it. You can heal it. You can let it go. You can integrate those parts of yourself and become stronger. Because if you're pretending that you're flawless, if you're pretending that you're perfect, if you're pretending that you've never struggled, you've never been afraid, never been angry, one, you're lying. And two, that's incredibly fragile. Because at some point, something's going to overwhelm your systems and you're going to shatter, you're going to break. But if you know your shadow and you own it, that's real power. That's real confidence. The last thing I want to talk about is really earning the respect of the man in the mirror. This idea of proving yourself to yourself. That's the only person that matters, but that person does matter, right? That's, I think, what we do differently at MTO because we bring a more masculine slant to therapy. I think traditional therapists are going to say, oh, you're perfect no matter what. You don't have to change. Everything's fine. As men, we know that's not true. We didn't come to therapy because everything was fine. We came to therapy because shit is fucked and we need to make a change. That's why we're here. We're not here to complain. We're not here to moan. We're not here to become victims. We're here to make meaningful change in our lives. So the idea is that by inhabiting and really making these changes, you can start to respect the man that you see in the mirror. Write down things you've been avoiding your entire life. I see this with a lot of my clients is, they could be very successful. They can make a lot of money. They can live in cool places. They can travel all the time. But most guys, almost all guys, we got something that we have been avoiding our whole lives. For some of us, it's our weight. For some of us, it's that we've never been in a real relationship. For some of us, it's our lack of spiritual connection. For some of us, it's a lack of interest or hobbies, or that shame voice, or a secret addiction, or looking at too much porn, whatever it is, right? Whatever it is, we have something that keeps us down. And to build real confidence, you have to tackle that head on, because optimizing for things that you're already good at while ignoring the thing that's holding you back is not going to work. It's just not. You have to attack the big elephant in the room. And by doing that, you can start to build integrity. You can start keeping those promises to yourself. You can start to work on the thing that you've been avoiding your entire life. And that means living in alignment. That means creating a sense of coherence throughout yourself. Instead of knowing that you're carrying around this big, horrible secret or this dark lie, you are actually becoming the man who you know that you are always meant to be. So by keeping these promises, by starting to move forward, you can start to build confidence in your world. And that is the magic. When your inner world and your outer world match, you can become that confident man. So confidence is not a personality trait. You're not born with it. It's not based on your genes. It's a skill. It's a muscle. It's one that you can grow. You can do it starting today. And if one of these steps hit home for you, and I hope more than one did, but if one really did, write it down. Practice it. Make it yours. Change the language. And if you want to go deeper, we talk about things like this every single week on the show and every single week in therapy. So if you like what we're doing here, hit subscribe, share it with a brother who needs it, and let me know in the comments, what's one thing that you're going to do today to build your confidence after listening to this episode? So let's keep growing together, one step at a time. The world needs strong men. Are you going to be one of them?